The wind screamed across the white land. Snow fell like a million knives from the dark sky. The planet Vareth 9 was frozen, dead and endless. No one lived here anymore, no one dared to, except a single human explorer named Ethan Cross. Ethan's small hovercraft crawled across the ice field, its engines whining in pain. He had come here to find old mining gear left by the first colonists, but now he was lost in the storm. The blizzard had started fast, swallowing the horizon, covering his tracks. The temperature outside was dropping lower than any suit could handle. His radio hissed with static, no contact with base, no signal, nothing inside his helmet. His AI companion spoke with a calm female voice. Warning. Oxygen reserves at 50%. Ethan sighed, his breath fogging the glass. I know, Arya, he said, his voice rough. Just find me a place to wait this out. Then the scanner beeped. A small green dot blinked on his screen. Arya said, Life sign detected. 100 meters ahead, Ethan frowned. Life here? He boosted the engine and pushed through the storm, the snow hitting his visor like needles. The signal grew stronger, faint but steady. His heart began to pound. When he reached the location, he almost missed it. A half-buried shape lay in the snow, glowing faintly blue. Ethan jumped from the craft, fighting the wind. He brushed off the snow and gasped. It was a body, but not human, long limbs, silver blue skin and eyes like liquid light. An alien female dying, her chest rose and fell weakly. Her hand clutched a small metal pod pressed to her chest. Ethan dropped to his knees beside her. Hey, can you hear me? He said through the storm. Her eyes flickered open, full of fear and sorrow. She whispered something, a strange language that his suit tried and failed to translate. Then she pushed the pod toward him. Her hands trembling, Ethan opened the pod and froze. Inside were two tiny alien children, small as newborns, their skin glowing like moonlight. They were breathing shallowly. Almost not at all. Arya, scan them. He shouted. Unknown species, the AI said. Life signs unstable. Oxygen toxic level rising. The alien mother tried to speak again. Her voice cracked, weak like the wind itself. She touched his chest plate and pointed upward to the storm. Then her arm fell. Her glow dimmed. Her body went still. Ethan stared in silence, the storm howling around him. He looked at the two small faces inside the pod. They were alive, but barely. He felt something deep inside him. A pull, a duty. He couldn't leave them here. Not to die like their mother, not in this cold grave. He lifted the pod and carried it to his hovercraft. Snow whipped against his back like claws. He stumbled, slipped, and almost fell, but he kept going, inside the craft. He laid the pod on the seat beside him. The little one's breaths fogged the glass. Faint and quick, he turned on the heat and sealed the hatch. Arya spoke. Ethan, their biology is not compatible with human atmosphere. They will not survive long. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then we'll make it compatible. He connected the pod to the life support system, adjusting oxygen flow until the warning lights turned yellow instead of red. Better, he muttered, wiping the frost from his visor. Outside, the storm roared louder. The craft shook as something heavy passed over it. Ethan froze. Arya, what was that? The scanner flickered. Unknown mass detected. Movement 30 meters behind us, Ethan turned. Staring through the blizzard, a dark shape moved between the snow walls. Too big, too fast, not human, not friendly. He powered up the engines, the hovercraft vibrating with energy. The scanners filled with static, then cleared for a second. He saw the shape again. A tall figure with glowing eyes standing still in the storm. Watching him, then it vanished, swallowed by the snow. Ethan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. He looked at the pod again. The two alien children sleeping inside. Fragile, glowing softly, he whispered. What did I just get myself into? Arya's voice was calm but urgent. Ethan, we must leave now. The storm's power readings are unnatural and I detect movement all around us. He gripped the controls, his jaw tight. Then hold on, he said. We're getting out of here. The hovercraft lifted off, engines howling against the storm. Snow and ice blasted past as it climbed into the blizzard. Ethan didn't look back at the place where the alien mother had died, but he felt her voice echoing in his mind. Soft broken words he couldn't understand, and yet he felt their meaning. Protect them. As the craft vanished into the white storm, the scanners behind him flickered one last time. On the frozen field, a new shape appeared, something not human, rising from the snow, and it began to follow. The storm outside had not ended. But inside Ethan's hovercraft there was only silence and fear. The little alien pod rested beside him. Glowing faintly blue in the dark cabin, Ethan sat staring at it, his hands trembling on the control panel. He had seen many strange things in his years of exploring distant worlds, but never something like this. 2 alien babies, breathing softly inside a pod made of light, and a dead mother buried in the snow behind him. Arya, Ethan said quietly. Run a full scan again, the AI's voice hummed. Gentle but serious. Life signs stable for now. Oxygen adjusted to 71%. Temperature optimal. Ethan nodded slowly. Good, good. He looked at the sleeping faces of the 2 alien children. They looked almost human. Tiny hands, soft skin, but faint blue veins glowing beneath their surface. One of them moved suddenly, opening her eyes. They were not normal eyes, they shimmered like melted glass. Filled with tiny stars, Ethan leaned closer. Surprised. Hey there. You're awake, he whispered. The child stared at him silently, tilting her head. Then she reached her small hand toward him. Pressing it against the glass of the pod, Ethan hesitated, then touched the same spot from the other side. A small spark of blue light flashed between them. He pulled his hand back quickly, his heart pounding. Arya, what was that? The AI replied. Unknown energy exchange. Bioelectric reaction non-hostile. Ethan let out a shaky breath. Guess she's saying hello, he murmured, a small smile on his face. He sat back and looked at the pod again. There was a symbol engraved on it, 3 curved lines forming a circle, glowing faintly whenever the babies moved. It didn't match any known alien language in the system. He felt a growing sense of mystery. Who were they? And why did their mother die trying to protect them? The storm began to ease outside, the white walls of snow fading into soft twilight. Ethan steered the hovercraft toward a rocky ridge nearby. He needed shelter, a place to rest. They had traveled far from his drop point, and communication with base was still dead. He found a small cave at the side of the ridge and guided the craft inside. The engines powered down, filling the space with a warm hum. For the first time in hours, Ethan could breathe. He unsealed his helmet, feeling the stale air on his skin. He opened the pod carefully, letting a bit of his cabin air mix with theirs. The babies didn't react badly. They seemed calm, their breathing steady. He smiled weakly. You 2 are tough little ones, aren't you? He reached into his bag and pulled out a thermal blanket, wrapping the pod to keep the warmth in. He sat beside it, exhausted, eyes half closed. Ethan, Arya's voice broke the quiet. I have translated partial memory fragments from the pod system. Ethan's eyes opened instantly. What do you mean? There is a recording, heavily damaged, but playable. Ethan nodded. Play it. A soft blue light filled the cabin, and a hologram appeared above the pod. It was the alien mother, alive, her face calm but full of sadness. Her voice echoed softly. If you find this, please protect them. They are my world, my last hope. The hologram flickered, showing her holding the babies in her arms. Then her eyes looked straight into the camera. They are the future of my kind. They are not weapons. They are light, and the darkness is coming. The hologram ended suddenly, leaving only silence. Ethan sat frozen, his chest heavy. He whispered, Darkness? What does she mean? Arya replied, Unclear, but I detect multiple encrypted data layers within the pod's memory core. Ethan rubbed his forehead, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on him. He hadn't planned for this. He was supposed to collect salvage, not raise alien children or fight some unseen danger. But something deep inside him refused to leave them behind. He remembered the mother's eyes as she died, filled with trust and desperation. He sighed, All right, Arya, we protect them. Outside, the wind began to rise again, and a strange sound echoed through the ice valley. A low hum, mechanical. Distant but coming closer, Ethan stood quickly, scanning the entrance of the cave. The radar blinked red. Multiple signals approaching, Arya said. Not human, Ethan cursed under his breath. He grabbed his plasma rifle from the storage rack and checked the charge. He moved toward the mouth of the cave, the snow glowing faintly from the moonlight. In the distance, through the swirling snow, he saw shadows moving, tall, armored, walking in perfect formation. Their armor shone black with symbols that matched the one on the pod. Except theirs glowed red, Ethan whispered. So, you're the darkness she was talking about. He crouched low and tapped his comm link. Arya, seal the pod and prepare for defense mode. Confirmed, the AI replied. The babies inside the pod stirred, as if sensing the danger, their glow brightening softly. Ethan aimed his weapon, breathing slowly. The figures drew closer, scanning the area with red beams of light. He knew he couldn't fight them all, but he had to buy time. As the first enemy approached the cave, the snow shimmered and one of the twins suddenly cried out. A wave of blue light burst from the pod, sweeping through the cave like a pulse. Every system in the craft flickered. Ethan's weapon sparked. The enemies outside stopped, confused. Their scanners malfunctioning, Ethan turned, eyes wide. The pod glowed brighter than ever, the twins awake now, their small eyes shining like stars. And then he realized something. They were not just survivors, they were powerful. And the universe would soon know it. The glow from the pod slowly faded. The cave fell silent again, except for the soft hum of the engines and Ethan's heavy breathing. He lowered his weapon, his hands shaking slightly. Outside, the red-armored shadows were gone. They had vanished into the blizzard as if swallowed by the storm itself. Ethan stared at the pod, where the two alien children were now sleeping again, their faint blue light pulsing like heartbeats. "Arya," he said quietly, "what just happened?" The AI replied, calm as always. "Unknown energy burst detected, radius 30 meters. Power equivalent to a fusion reactor spike." Ethan frowned. "Are you telling me those two little girls just knocked out an entire squad with energy?" "Affirmative," Arya answered, "and the signal they emitted has been detected across orbital sensors." Ethan's stomach turned. "Meaning, someone out there knows where we are now." He rubbed his face. Exhausted, the twins were more than children. They were something else, something the universe might be hunting. As he sat beside the pod, something metallic caught his eye. Lying near the wall was the alien mother's device, the crystal cube he had found beside her body before the storm. He picked it up carefully, brushing the frost off its smooth surface. It began to glow faintly in his hand, reacting to the pod's presence. "Arya," Ethan said, "can you read this thing?" "I can try," the AI replied. A thin beam scanned the cube. Lines of alien script flickering across his screen. Then a soft hum filled the air and a new hologram appeared. The same alien mother stood before him again, her image trembling like a ghost. This time she looked younger, stronger. "Whoever finds this," her voice said softly, "you must listen." Ethan leaned forward. His chest tight, the hologram continued. "My name is Vela, last protector of the Lumeri. Our world has fallen, destroyed by the hunters." She paused, her eyes filled with grief. "They come from beyond the dark rings. Machines without mercy. They erase worlds. They erase life." Ethan frowned, whispering, "The hunters." "The same ones she mentioned before." The hologram flickered again. "I sent my daughters, Lyra and Novi. Away before they reached us, their power is new, untested. But they are hope." Vela looked down, holding something close. Probably the same pod Ethan had found. "If the hunters find them, they will use them to destroy what's left of light in the galaxy." The hologram trembled. "If you are human, I beg you, protect them. Your kind once helped ours long ago." Before the silence, then the image shattered into shards of blue light, and the cube went dark. Ethan sat there for a long time, his mind spinning. Humans had helped them before. When? There was no record of any human contact with this species, not in any database. Unless it happened before the first colonies, before the wars that erased so much history. He sighed deeply. "Arya, run a match on her species." "Lumeri. Searching," the AI replied. After a moment it spoke again. "Partial match found. Ancient records from Earth's lost archives. Codename Project Genesis." Ethan's eyes widened. Project Genesis. That was supposed to be a myth. "Not a myth," Arya said. "Classified research, terminated centuries ago. Humans experimented with alien DNA to create hybrid lifeforms capable of surviving deep space radiation." Ethan shook his head slowly. "So these kids, they might have human genes?" "Possibly," the AI replied. "Or something even more advanced." He stood up and walked to the mouth of the cave. Looking out into the storm, his reflection shone faintly on the ice, just a tired man. Alone, carrying two children who could change everything. He whispered, "If the hunters really know where we are, they'll be back soon." Arya responded softly. "Ethan, I recommend relocating immediately. Signal strength is increasing. Enemy ships inbound within 2 hours." He turned back to the pod. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the chaos around them. He reached out and touched the glass gently. "You two better be worth the trouble," he muttered with a tired smile. He packed his gear, loaded the pod back into the hovercraft, and powered up the engines. The ice cracked under the thrust, sending echoes through the frozen valley. As the craft lifted off, he saw flashes of red lights on the horizon, distant but closing fast. He clenched his jaw. "Arya, plot a route toward the southern range. Any human structures left in that area? Possible remains of a research outpost. Designation, Outpost Theta 7, she said. Ethan nodded. Good. We'll hide there. As they flew through the storm, lightning rippled across the clouds. The pod sensors beeped again, reacting to something. Ethan glanced down. Lyra was awake, staring out the window with those glowing eyes. Her tiny hand reached toward the glass, tracing the storm's light, and for a brief second, the lightning outside seemed to follow her movement. Ethan's breath caught. "Arya, did you see that?" "Confirmed," the AI said. Electrical field interference synchronized with the child's motion. He whispered, "She's controlling it. She's controlling the storm." For the next hour, they traveled through the ice winds, the hunter's signals fading behind them. Though not gone, when the storm finally cleared, a vast frozen plain stretched ahead, broken only by old ruins half buried in snow. Outpost Theta 7. Ethan guided the hovercraft toward it. Heart pounding, he didn't know what waited inside. But one thing was clear. He wasn't just a scavenger anymore, he was now a guardian, carrying two lives that could decide the fate of worlds. As they landed, the twins opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at him silently, and for a moment, he felt warmth spread through the cold, like they understood him, like they trusted him. Ethan smiled faintly. "All right, little ones," he whispered. "Let's find out what secrets you're hiding." Outside, far behind them, the red lights of the hunters' ships cut through the dark sky once more, and their leader spoke in a voice colder than the ice. "Signal reacquired, target moving south. Initiate pursuit." The sun of Vareth 9 was weak, just a pale circle behind clouds of frozen dust. Ethan's hovercraft cut across the endless snowfield, leaving trails of steam in the cold air. Inside, the engines hummed low, struggling to keep speed. The radar kept flashing red warnings. "Arya," Ethan said, his eyes locked on the display. "How far are they now?" The AI's calm voice answered. "Hunters closing in at high velocity. 4 ships detected. Estimated contact in 8 minutes," Ethan muttered. "That's not good," and pushed the throttle forward. The twin alien children slept quietly in their pod beside him, their glow steady and peaceful. He wished he could protect them forever like this. But the red lights on his radar said otherwise. He couldn't fight these things head-on. Not with a scavenger ship, he needed to outsmart them head. The land broke open into a maze of tall blue ice canyons, sharp and winding like frozen rivers. Ethan pointed. "There, Arya. Plot a path through that canyon system." "Warning," Arya replied. "The terrain is unstable. Risk of collapse exceeds 70%. "Better than 100% chance of death," Ethan said grimly. He dove the hovercraft down into the canyon. The walls closing around them, ice glittered like glass, reflecting the craft's blue light. Behind him, the sky burned red as the hunters descended, their engines roaring like beasts. They fired beams of plasma that sliced through the snow and ice. The explosions shook the canyon walls, sending shards raining down. Ethan gritted his teeth and swerved hard to the left, barely missing a falling block of ice. "Arya, reroute power from shields to thrusters," he ordered. "Confirmed," the AI replied, and the craft jolted forward with new strength. The twins stirred inside the pod, their soft glow brightening. Ethan glanced back nervously. "It's all right, little ones, just hold on." Lyra, the older one, opened her eyes. She looked at him, then at the control panel. Her tiny hand pressed against the pod's glass, and suddenly, the lights in the cabin flickered. The hovercraft's system surged with energy, the engines roaring louder than before. Ethan blinked, surprised. "Arya, what just happened?" "Energy spike detected," the AI said. "Source, the child." Ethan stared, realizing she was somehow boosting the craft. "Keep doing that, sweetheart," he whispered. Steering sharply through a narrow gap, the hovercraft shot ahead, slicing between ice walls like a comet. The hunters followed, firing relentlessly, their red beams cutting through the canyon floor. One blast hit close, shaking the cabin violently. Ethan's shoulder slammed against the controls. Alarm screamed. Shields down to 20%, Arya warned. Ethan's voice was low, calm, but fierce. Not giving up. Not yet. They burst into a wider chamber of ice, a frozen cavern glittering with tall crystal pillars. Ethan stared in awe even as the danger grew. Arya, map this. This looks like some kind of natural tunnel network. Negatives, Arya said. This structure shows energy readings, artificial origin. Ethan frowned. Artificial? Who built this? Before he could think further, the hunter's ships appeared behind him, cutting through the crystals like knives. He took a deep breath and pulled a lever. The hovercraft flipped sideways, scraping past the ice walls in a narrow spin. The enemy's plasma bolts missed by inches. Exploding behind him, the shockwave pushed him forward, out of the tunnel and into another canyon. Snow and fire rained from the sky. His heart pounded, his knuckles white on the controls. Then suddenly Arya said, "Incoming transmission." Ethan blinked. From who? Unknown source, encrypted signal. Origin nearby. Before he could reply, the holographic display flickered. A static-filled image appeared, an old human logo, faded and broken. It read, Outpost Theta 7 Human Research Division. Ethan stared, realization dawning. We made it. But before he could breathe relief, the radar beeped again. Warning, hunters redirecting. 2 ships breaking off, heading toward the outpost. Ethan's face hardened. They want the twins, they know what's there. He turned sharply toward the outpost. Pushing the engines to their limit, snow sprayed behind him in long white trails. The structure appeared ahead, metal towers half buried in ice. Their lights flickering faintly, the hunters followed, firing again. One blast hit the rear of the hovercraft, sending sparks through the cabin. Ethan's screen cracked. Alarm screamed louder. He shouted, Arya! Redirect all power to forward shields. Doing so will disable life support, she warned. Just do it. Ethan barked. The hovercraft glowed with a thin blue shield, just enough to deflect the next shot. As they neared the outpost gates, the ice beneath them began to crack. The shockwaves from the hunters' weapons had weakened the ground. Large fissures opened up, swallowing entire chunks of canyon. Arya, status. Ethan yelled, Critical instability, we must land immediately. Ethan looked at the pod, at the 2 children watching him with glowing eyes. He took a deep breath and said softly, Hold tight. We're landing this thing. He tilted the craft and aimed for the outpost's hangar bay. The hovercraft skidded across the ice, sparks flying. Metal screamed as it crashed through the half-buried gate. The craft finally came to rest inside. Smoke and steam rising, Ethan coughed, unbuckling himself. Arya, damage report. Engines offline, minor injuries detected. Life support stable? He turned to the pod. The twins were safe. Their glow dim but steady. He smiled weakly. We made it, but before he could stand, Arya's voice changed tone, urgent and cold. Ethan! New contact detected inside the outpost. Ethan froze. Inside? Yes, she said. Life form approaching, humanoid. Not Hunter. Ethan grabbed his rifle. Heart pounding again. Through the cracked windshield, a shadow moved in the misty corridor ahead. A figure walking slowly toward him, carrying a light. He raised his weapon, ready to fire, but the figure stopped and spoke in a human voice. Tired and deep. You shouldn't have come here. Ethan Cross. Ethan's eyes widened. How do you know my name? He whispered. The man stepped closer, the light revealing his face, aged. Scarred, wearing an old Earth uniform. Because, the stranger said. I built the Lumeri. The hangar was silent, filled with drifting smoke and the slow hiss of cooling metal. Ethan stood still, his rifle aimed at the stranger who had just spoken his name. The man stepped closer, his boots echoing across the icy floor. He was tall but thin, his face pale. Eyes sharp and tired, his old Earth uniform was torn. The badge on his chest faded. It read Dr. Elias Ward. Ethan's grip tightened. How do you know me? He demanded. Dr. Ward smiled faintly, a sad kind of smile. Because I was there when they first mentioned you, he said. His voice low and rough. You're Ethan Cross, the last field engineer from TerraCorp's Exploration Division. The only one still active in this quadrant. Ethan frowned. That's classified data. How could you know that? Ward stepped closer, his eyes catching the soft blue glow from the pod behind Ethan. Because, he whispered, I built what you're carrying. Ethan turned slightly. Glancing at the pod inside, the twin alien children, Lyra and Novi, slept quietly, their faint light pulsing with calm energy. What do you mean you built them? Ethan asked. His voice sharp with disbelief, Ward sighed. Walking to a nearby console covered in frost and dust, he wiped it clean and pressed a sequence of buttons. The old screens flickered to life, revealing lines of old Earth code mixed with alien script. This outpost, Ward said, was part of Project Genesis, humanity's first and last attempt to create hybrid life. Ethan stared at the screens. Confused, I thought Project Genesis was a myth, he said. It was buried, Ward replied, buried deep by people who didn't want the truth to survive. He turned toward Ethan, his face lit by the cold blue light. Humans once found the Lumeri, a peaceful species of light. Pure energy and mind, not flesh, not warlike. We studied them, learned from them, and then... His voice trembled. We tried to copy them. Ethan frowned. Copy them? You mean create them? Ward nodded slowly. We mixed human DNA with fragments of Lumeri energy patterns, hoping to make beings that could survive deep space and rebuild lost worlds, he paused, his gaze heavy with regret. But it went wrong. The hybrids were too powerful, too unstable, they couldn't be controlled. TerraCorp shut it all down. Ethan looked at the pod again, his voice soft. And these two, Ward nodded. They're the last. Lyra and Novi. He said their names as if remembering his own children. The purest of both kinds, human hearts, Lumeri energy, and something else we never understood. Ethan took a deep breath. Trying to process it all, he looked around the ruined outpost, broken machines, shattered tubes, glowing wires frozen in place. Everywhere he looked, there were signs of experiments that had gone too far. Why are you still here? He asked quietly. Ward gave a small, hollow laugh. Because I couldn't leave, he said. I was part of what created them, so I stayed to clean up what was left. He turned to a dark doorway and said softly, But the hunters found us first. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Hunters? Those machines chasing us? Ward nodded grimly. They were built to erase the mistakes of Project Genesis. The company's own machines turned into executioners, programmed to destroy every trace of the experiment. He touched his chest, where faint scars glowed under the skin. I was one of the first to be marked for deletion. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his weapon slightly. Then why help me? He asked. Ward looked at the children again, his eyes soft. Because they deserve a chance. Ethan, they are not mistakes. They are what humanity should have been. Suddenly, Arya's voice interrupted, urgent and cold. Ethan, warning. Multiple signatures inbound. Hunters approaching from the North Ridge. Ethan turned, his heart racing. How much time? 7 minutes, she replied. Ward moved quickly to another console. Typing commands. We can hide them, he said. There's a cryo vault below the lab. Shielded from scanners, Ethan nodded, grabbing the pod. Lead the way. They hurried down a corridor lined with old lights and cables. The walls were marked with faded words. Genesis research authorized only. The air grew colder as they descended. When they reached the lower chamber, Ethan froze. Rows of glass tubes stood in silence, each one holding a faint glow. Failed hybrid forms. Half human, half light, lifeless but beautiful. Ward looked down, guilt shadowing his face. They were early attempts, he whispered. They didn't survive the fusion process. Ethan placed the pod in the center of the chamber. Ward began typing rapidly on the main control board. Energy hummed through the floor, the vault lighting up with soft blue patterns. They'll be safe here for now, Ward said, but the hunters won't stop. They'll tear this place apart to find them. Ethan gritted his teeth. Then we make sure they don't. He loaded his plasma rifle and checked the energy packs. Ward stared at him, surprised. You plan to fight them? Ethan smiled faintly, a grim, tired smile. Someone has to buy them time. Ward hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small crystal disc. Take this, he said, handing it to Ethan. It holds all the data about the Genesis project. Every mistake, every truth, everything they tried to erase. Ethan took it, slipping it into his armor. I'll make sure it gets out, he said. Ward nodded. Then may the light protect you. Ethan Cross. As they returned to the upper level, the ground began to shake. The roar of engines echoed through the halls. The hunters had arrived. Their red lights flashed through the cracks in the doors, shadows moving closer. Ethan took position by the hangar entrance. Rifle ready, the twins' pod glowed faintly below. Hidden deep under the ice, and as the first explosion tore through the wall, Ethan whispered under his breath, For you, little ones, the battle for the outpost had begun, and the future of two worlds would depend on how long one human could stand against the darkness. The ground trembled under Ethan's boots. Dust and frost fell from the ceiling, and the lights flickered weakly. He gripped his plasma rifle tighter, his breath visible in the freezing air. Arya's voice filled his helmet, calm but tense. "Ethan, multiple hunter units breaching the outer wall." He glanced at Dr. Ward beside him, who was working quickly on a control panel. "Once I seal the cryo-vault, they won't find the children," Ward said. Ethan nodded, his jaw set. "Good, because they're not getting past me." The first explosion hit, shaking the entire outpost. Metal screamed as the outer doors tore apart and cold wind rushed in. Ethan saw them, the hunters, tall and armored, their bodies made of black alloy. Their eyes glowed red, their steps heavy and mechanical. Each one carried a plasma weapon larger than a human arm. They moved in silence like machines built for one purpose, erasure. Ethan took cover behind a metal crate and fired the first shot. Blue plasma ripped through the air, striking one hunter square in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. "Arya, increase weapon output to max," Ethan ordered. "Power rerouted," she replied, and the rifle hummed louder. He fired again, this time hitting the hunter's head. The machine fell, sparks bursting from its broken face. More hunters entered the hangar, their weapons glowing red. Ethan ran across the floor, sliding behind a broken transport vehicle. Energy blasts scorched the walls around him. "Ward," he shouted, "how much longer?" "Almost done," Ward called back, typing furiously. Ethan peeked out and fired again, hitting another hunter in the arm. Its weapon exploded, lighting up the hangar in a burst of fire and metal. But for everyone he destroyed, two more entered. He ducked behind cover, breathing hard. "Arya, options." "There is an auxiliary power grid near the ceiling," she said. "If overloaded, it could cause an EMP surge." Ethan looked up at the tangled wires above them. "EMP, huh? That'll fry them." He aimed at the grid, switched the rifle's charge mode, and fired. A pulse of blue light spread through the air like a shockwave. Every hunter froze mid-step, their red lights flickering. For a moment, silence filled the hangar. Then the machines rebooted one by one, their eyes glowing brighter. Ethan swore under his breath. Of course they have fail-safes. He turned toward Ward, who had finished sealing the vault. The scientist ran toward him, shouting over the noise. "They're adapting, Ethan. They're learning." Ethan grabbed Ward by the arm, pulling him behind the wreckage. "Then we give them something they can't adapt to." He pulled the crystal disc from his suit pocket, the one Ward had given him. "What if we broadcast this?" Ethan said, "The truth about Genesis, about them, if the hunters are tied to the same system, maybe it'll confuse their protocols." Ward's eyes widened. "It's risky, but it could work." He nodded quickly, connecting a cable from his wrist device to the disc. Uploading now. As the data began to transfer, the hunter suddenly stopped moving. Their lights flickered wildly, as if something inside their system was breaking. The air filled with a strange sound, a deep metallic growl mixed with static. Ward's fingers flew over the console. "Keep them busy," he shouted. Ethan stood, firing at the nearest hunter. Drawing its attention away, the machine turned toward him. Its weapon glowing before it could fire, Ethan rolled aside. Blasting it through the leg joint, the hunter fell, clawing at the floor with burning arms. The hangar shook again, this time from above. Arya's voice came through urgently. "Ethan, enemy reinforcements inbound. 2 ships preparing to land on the roof." He looked at Ward. "We need to go now." Ward hesitated. "The upload is at 90%. "Then finish it from below, move," Ethan ordered, grabbing the scientist's arm and pushing him toward the lower tunnel. Ward nodded reluctantly, disappearing into the stairwell. Ethan stayed behind, firing at the incoming hunters. Sparks filled the air, smoke thick and glowing. He could hear Arya counting down. 5 hostiles remaining, 4, 3. A sudden blast threw Ethan backward, his armor smoking. He hit the floor hard, gasping. Through blurry vision, he saw a massive hunter stepping forward, taller than the rest, its armor engraved with strange red patterns. "Arya," he whispered. "What is that?" "Unknown," she said softly. "Power readings off the chart." The massive hunter spoke, its voice deep and distorted. "Human, you are obsolete." Ethan coughed and forced himself up, aiming his rifle. "Maybe, but I'm still standing." The machine raised its arm, charging a red beam. Before it could fire, the ground shook again, this time from below. A blinding blue light burst through the floor. The hunters turned as energy surged through the entire outpost. The pod, the one hidden in the cryo-vault, was glowing. Ethan's eyes widened. The kids. He stumbled toward the stairs, calling out, "Ward!" "What's happening?" Ward's voice came through the comm, panicked. "They're awake, Ethan, the twins, they're waking up." The energy pulse grew stronger, lighting up every wall. The hunters began to falter, their systems glitching, their red lights dimming. Lyra and Novi floated inside the pod, their small hands touching the glass, eyes glowing like stars. Their light spread through the walls, flowing like water through every wire and machine. Ethan could feel the air vibrating with power. "Arya, readings? Unmeasurable," she said. "They're releasing pure Lumere energy." The massive hunter stepped back, its armor cracking under the pressure. "Containment failure," it growled. "Terminate targets." But before it could act, the energy burst exploded outward. A wave of blue light consumed the hangar, the hunters and the ice around them. Ethan covered his face as the entire structure shook. When the light faded, silence followed. The machines were gone, their remains turned to ash. Only faint blue sparks floated through the air like snowflakes. Ethan dropped to one knee, gasping, "Arya!" He said softly, "Status." The AI's voice was quiet. "All hunters neutralized, power systems offline. Temperature rising." Ethan stood slowly, looking toward the lower vault. He could feel warmth spreading through the floor, gentle and alive. The twins had saved them, but at what cost? As he walked down the broken stairway, he heard Ward's weak voice calling, "They're stable, Ethan." But something's changed. When he reached the chamber, he saw the pod open. Lyra and Novi were standing, small, glowing and smiling faintly. Their eyes met his, and in his mind, he heard their voices, not words, but feelings, peace, safety, and gratitude. Ethan knelt down, whispering softly, "You did it, little ones." But above them, through the cracks in the ice, a distant red light blinked once more. Far away in orbit, a massive ship stirred to life. The true hunter fleet had just awakened, and they had found their target. The outpost was burning beneath the frozen sky. Blue flames from the Lumere twins' power mixed with the dark smoke of broken machines. Ethan stood in the wreckage. His armor cracked, his body trembling, but his eyes steady. The twins, Lyra and Novi, stood beside him, small and glowing like living stars. Dr. Ward leaned against a shattered console, bleeding but still alive. Outside, the storm had stopped, and the world was silent. But above the silence, the sky shimmered red. Hundreds of hunter ships were descending through the clouds. Ethan looked up, his face lit by their crimson light. "They're not stopping," he whispered. Arya's voice replied through the static, calm but grim. "Hunter fleet identified, Class Omega command vessel detected, planetary destruction protocol initiated." Ward's face turned pale. "That means they're going to wipe the whole planet." Ethan clenched his fists. "Not if we get the twins out first." He turned to the two children. Kneeling in front of them, Lyra's eyes were wide, filled with something like sadness. Novi reached out, touching his hand softly. Their small voices echoed in his mind, not in words but in pure feeling, fear, love and trust. Ethan swallowed hard. He knew what they were asking. They didn't want to leave him behind. "Listen," he said softly, "you have to go. You're the last hope your mother talked about." Lyra shook her head, her glowing eyes wet with tears that shimmered like light itself. Ethan smiled gently, even through the pain. "Your mother wanted you to live," he said, "and she trusted me to make sure of that." Ward stumbled forward, carrying a small metallic device, the cryopod's propulsion core. "I can modify this into an escape capsule," he said. "It'll get them off-world, but only once." Ethan nodded. "Do it." He turned toward Arya. "Prepare flight coordinates. Find somewhere safe, somewhere the hunters can't track them." "Understood," Arya said. "There's a signal in deep orbit, an old colony beacon still active. Coordinates transmitting now." As Ward worked on the pod, Ethan reloaded his plasma rifle and looked up at the sky again. The hunter fleet was moving closer, forming patterns like a swarm of red insects. Each ship glowed with energy, charging their weapons. The air hummed with power, he whispered. "They'll hit us in minutes," Arya replied. "Yes, Ethan, and when they do, nothing will survive." Ward finished the modifications, connecting wires and sealing the pod shut. "It's ready," he said, his voice breaking. "But once it launches, there's no coming back." Ethan nodded. That's the point. He walked to the twins, who were watching him quietly. He knelt and placed his hand over their pod. Your mother believed in light, he said, his voice shaking. So do I. He activated the pod, and its energy core began to hum. The walls around them glowed as power built up. Ward stepped back, tears in his eyes. Ethan, you'll die if you stay, he said.
Ethan smiled faintly. Someone has to hold the door. The ground shook violently as the first hunter blasts hit the surface. The entire outpost trembled, ice collapsing around them. Ethan ran to the control station and slammed his hand onto the manual override. Arya, reroute all remaining energy to launch systems. Confirmed, she replied. Power diverted. Countdown initiated. The sky above cracked open as the Hunter command ship fired a massive beam down through the clouds, a column of red light ripped through the ice, heading straight for the outpost. Ethan grabbed his rifle and ran outside, snow whipping around him. The red beam tore across the horizon, and he fired into it, defiant, hopeless, but unyielding. Ward's voice echoed through the calm. Ethan. 10 seconds. Ethan shouted back, launch them, now. Inside, the pod began to glow brighter than the sun. Lyra and Novi pressed their hands against the glass, staring at Ethan through the storm. He looked back, his face calm. Go, he whispered. Live. The pod's engines roared, and in a burst of blue light, it shot upward through the broken roof. The storm exploded around it as it climbed into the sky, leaving a glowing trail. The hunters turned their cannons toward it, but the pod vanished in a flash, faster than their sensors could track. Ethan laughed weakly, watching it disappear into the stars. Then he turned back toward the hunter fleet. His weapon hummed, his armor glowed faintly from the twins' lingering energy. Arya's voice came softly. Ethan, energy levels critical. I know, he said with a tired smile. Let's make it count. He aimed his rifle at the sky. Standing firm against the storm, the red beam descended, filling his vision with fire. Ethan shouted with all the strength left in him, for humanity. The outpost vanished in a burst of white-blue light, high above, in the silence of space. The twins' pod drifted toward the old colony beacon. Inside, Lyra and Novi slept peacefully, the faint glow of starlight reflecting on their faces. In their tiny hands, they held something, a small metal tag, burned and old. It read, Ethan Cross. Drifting near them, the mother's hologram flickered to life one last time, her voice soft as a whisper. He saved you, my daughters, she said. And through you, the light of humanity lives on. The stars stretched endlessly around them, two small lights moving through the dark, carrying the hope of two worlds. And far behind them, on a frozen planet now silent and still, a faint blue spark glowed in the ice where Ethan had stood, as if the light he protected had never truly left.